So small businesses say they are being hurt by the Chinese tariffs, and some could be forced to shut down.
And many businesses are being helped.
Are you considering tariff relief for small businesses?
Why do you always mention that, you pick up a couple of little businesses? What about the car business? They're going to make a fortune because of the tariffs. I like even the way you ask questions. Every question is asked in a negative vein. There's a toy company that took a toddler's, whatever. But you don't talk about the fact that gasoline is down at numbers that nobody believes possible.
We try to make sure every question is fair, Mr. President.
Look, every question you ask says a very negative slant.
No, but look, I'm just curious.
I'm fine for responding to you. I don't think you're very difficult at all to respond to be honest with you. But you know what? You should ask some positive things like, sir, it's amazing what you've done with gasoline. Because you know what? Gasoline's big business. A stroller is not big business.
This was an entertaining interview to watch between Trump and Kristen Welker from Meet the Press on NBC. I think you're going to appreciate how Trump handles so many pointed, angled, a lot of ridiculous questions, and the patience he has, and the calm way he fires back at Kristen throughout this interview. Because I know, dealing with people like this that are super liberal, that point out every little negative thing about Trump, it's hard to have a 10-minute conversation with them, let alone an hour-long interview like Trump did. But I'm going to show you guys the best moments, my favorite moments from the interview. It's Sean Daniel here, filming from a hostel bed in South Korea on a trip around Asia. No, I'm not on a diplomatic mission anymore. That was previous. Maybe I have to do some tariff work in a bit for the Trump administration. Who knows? If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button. Let's go. Now, I want to start it off with this question that I thought was really impressive by Kristen Welker, the NBC reporter. She asks Trump a really great question that's true. It's not angled. It's not pivoted. It's not to put him in some corner. It makes total sense based on how he's taking pride and ownership of all the positives of the economy, but he's also putting all the negatives of the economy on Biden. Check out Trump's responses and how she continues to re-ask him this question, which I think makes sense.
On the eve of your inauguration, the stock market spiked. You called it the Trump effect.
It spiked because I was elected president. Well, it spiked because of anybody else. It spiked because they see what I'm going to do. They know what I'm going to do with the tariffs and everything else. And I think it's actually working out better than we anticipated. Did you see oil prices? Did you see gasoline is now below, in many cases, in many states, below $2 a gallon, $1.98, $1.99, $1.97?
Well, my question, sir, is when the stock market spiked, you said this is the Trump effect. When the numbers weren't so good earlier this week, you said it's the Biden effect. Are you only taking ownership of the good numbers and not the bad numbers?
I think he did a lot of very bad things, and despite some of the bad things, we're overcoming them. But he was bad on the border. He was bad on the economy. We had the worst inflation in the history of our country. Look, Biden gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. People, it didn't matter what they made because they were losing their shirt because of costs. Now take a look at what happened. Oil is down, gasoline is down, groceries are down, eggs. You were the one that asked me. You asked me about eggs. It was the first week. I didn't even know anything about what were you talking about. Egg prices were so high you couldn't buy eggs. They didn't have any eggs. And they said Easter is going to be a disaster. Well, we had Easter at the White House, and we had thousands of eggs, and they were down 87%.
Yeah, a lot of that, of course, spike was because of bird flu. But when does it become the Trump economy?
Why do you say that?
Well, tell me,
we had the same bird flu as he had.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now, and I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy, because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job on everything, from his auto pen, which I'm sure he knew nothing about some of the things he was supposedly signing, to immigration. You look at what happened with immigration, how bad it was. Think of it. We have murderers, 11,888 murderers. Many of them murdered more than one person. Think of that. And they're in our country. Now, we've gotten a lot of them out, and we know who many of them are, and we're on the hunt. But why would anybody do that? Why would anybody, who could do such a thing where they'd allow hundreds of thousands and even millions of people into our country who are criminals and murderers at the highest level. Who would do this?
But, sir, you acknowledge when you announced your tariffs, for example, the stock market dropped. It's been volatile. It has since gone up.
It is,
do you
but now
take
it's going up.
responsibility
Look at
for
today.
that? Yeah. Do you take responsibility when it drops?
Ultimately, I take responsibility for everything, but I've only just been here for a little more than 3 months. But the stock market, look at what's happened in the last short period of time. Didn't it have 9 or 10 days in a row or 11 days where it's gone up? And the tariffs have just started kicking in. And we're doing really well psychologically. I mean, the fake news was giving me such press on the tariffs. The tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to be a very rich country.
You see how well she did to continue to re-bring that point up to him as he was fading back, trying to talk about immigration, all the bad things Biden did, which are true, how much those contribute to the economy, and that he can't turn it around in 90 days, 100 days. But I think she's being respectful right now while asking him these questions. She hasn't shown her tainted side yet where she's going to try to get him in some corner. But he does a good job. He always does this thing where he's trying to remind the press, the media, the people who are watching, all the negative stuff that's gone down and all the positive stuff that he's accomplishing, which you can understand why he does it, just to combat the constant negative press he gets. Now, does that hinder him because he's not directly answering the question? Maybe, but you can understand why he does it, just to combat everything we're hearing as an audience. We're hearing negatives all the time. So in every question almost, he's got to remind the audience the positive things he's doing. Now, do his answers fully make sense about the economy and the bad things? And I think so. Yes, he's not going to explain everything about the tariffs, how they take down the economy, but now they're going to bring them back up. He's had to explain that a million times. But I think it was great that she continued to ask a logical question that many conservatives on YouTube or other social media things might be like, oh, she's pressuring him, she's so messed up. Now, that was a good question, and it was decent responses by Trump. Now he's going to get more in detail on the tariffs.
So let's talk about the tariffs. And I want to ask you about something you said this week. Got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
When you say they could have $3 instead of $30, are you saying Americans could see empty store shelves?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
But you're basically saying there could be some supply shortages because of the tariff.
We don't have to waste money on a trade deficit with China for things we don't need, for junk that we don't need.
Well, prices are already going up on some popular items, tires, strollers.
This is such a dishonest interview already. Prices are down on groceries. Prices are down for oil. Prices are down for all energy. Prices are down at tremendous numbers for gasoline. And let me tell you, when you have the big thing, what he did, he spent like a stupid person, which he was, but he spent like a very stupid person. And that was bad for inflation. But what really killed us with inflation was the price of energy. It went up to $3.90, even $4, and in California, $5 and $6, right? Okay. I have it down to $1.98 in many states right now. When you go that much lower on energy, which is ahead of my prediction because I really thought I could get it down into the 250s. We have it down at $1.98 in numerous places. But when you say costs are going up, even mortgage rates are going down.
Well, but let me give you some examples. These are actual examples. So you're saying the prices that are going down, some prices are going up. Tires, strollers, some clothing in the wake of your tariffs.
Excuse me, that's peanuts compared to energy. Energy is 60% of the cost.
But, sir, you
energy is the big.
You campaigned on a promise to bring prices down on day
Well, I don't know. When
one.
you say strollers are going up, what kind of a thing? I'm saying that gasoline is going down. Gasoline is thousands of times more important than a stroller someplace.
But what do you say to Americans who say they voted for you because they want and they need relief right now?
And they're getting it.
Right now? What about those
even mortgage rates?
different items I just
mortgage
mentioned?
rates are going down, despite the fact that we have a stubborn Fed.
But you said even dolls could cost a couple bucks more.
Maybe they might, but you don't need to have, as I said, $35. You can have 2, 3, 4, and save a lot of money. We don't need to feed the beast.
I guess you're talking about this transition cost. How long should people expect that transition to last, Mr. President?
I can't tell you that. I can tell you that we're making a lot of money. We're doing great. Again, we're losing more than $5 billion a day. $5 billion a day. You don't talk about that. And right now, we're going to be at a point very soon where we're making money every day. Look.
How soon?
We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars with China. Now we're essentially not doing business with China. Therefore, we're saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Very simple.
That long answer and back and forth shows me just how impressive Trump is, because he has to keep track of so many things on his head, while the media can find one thing he says in a cabinet meeting and dissect it to the nth degree to try to put him in a corner. Like the doll thing. He says, okay, Americans can maybe, instead of having 30 dolls for their girls, they can have 3. What does that really mean? Behind that, I think it means we're spending way too much wasteful spending as Americans on products coming from China. Why are we spending so much wasteful spending on that? Because they're made so damn cheaply that China can make these products, undercut the rest of the world, and get all the business from our consumer economy, our economy that spends so much money. So therefore, people in the U.S. will buy 30 dolls because they're $5 a piece, instead of buying 3 to 5 dolls that their kid actually needs. Excuse the motorcycles on the street outside, guys. I'm sorry. And he says that quickly in a cabinet meeting. It makes a good point, and he's also highlighting the behind the scenes of how much China motivates us to spend by how cheap they produce and sell to us, which inevitably takes money away from our economy. Gives us that $5 billion deficit he's talking about a day. $5 billion. Now, he says that. Do I know exactly that's the figure? No, I don't. But you guys can put together that we're probably losing a lot of money to China. And while he's trying to combat that, he's got to combat saying a few little words in a cabinet meeting that make a good point, are deep, but he's going to get dissected on in the next interview. I think it's very impressive how he handles that stuff, keeps track of it. And it also shows you, as we watch the rest of this interview, just how many singular statements he has made that they are going to bring up, track down, analyze, and press him on. Now watch how great it is that he calls her out for how she always tries to focus on the negative, focus on some people, some businesses, this small amount of people that have some negative thing to say. She doesn't bring up anything about some people saying some positive stuff, and he calls her out for it.
So small businesses say they are being hurt by the Chinese tariffs, and some could be forced to shut down.
And many businesses are being helped.
Are you considering tariff relief for small businesses?
Why do you always mention that, you pick up a couple of little businesses? What about the car business? They're going to make a fortune because of the tariffs. Do you know that the union, the head of the union, who was no fan of mine, Sean Fain, I guess his name is, right? He didn't endorse me. The Teamsters did. A lot of people did. A lot of unions did. But he didn't. He couldn't stand me. Now he's saying, wow, what's Trump's done for the automobile? I can't believe it. I assume he's going to probably now say, the next thing he can say is, I endorse this guy. He's the greatest I've ever seen. He can't believe it's happened. He said, we've been waiting 40 years for somebody to do what Trump is doing. So why don't you mention the big car industry instead of mentioning somebody that's doing strollers?
Let me ask you about some of what Wall Street has said. Some people on Wall Street have expressed concerns that the possibility of a recession is increasing. And I want to know what you think about that. Are you comfortable with the country potentially dipping into a recession for a period of time if you are able to achieve your long-term goals.
Well, you know, you say some people on Wall Street say, well, I tell you something else. Some people on Wall Street say that we're going to have the greatest economy in history. Why don't you talk about them? Because some people on Wall Street say this is the greatest thing that ever happened.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at, though. It's the same question.
Yeah, there are many people on Wall Street say this is going to be the greatest windfall ever happened.
And that's my question,
Remember
the
this.
long term.
Yeah.
Is it okay in the short term to have a
Remember
recession?
this. Look, everything's okay. What we are, I said, this is a transition period. I think we're going to do fantastically.
Now get ready for a pretentious, tainted, ridiculous, illogical. No, let's start that over. Now get ready for a pretentious, wicked, tainted, and slanted question by Kristen Welker right here at Trump that is framed in a self-righteous, politically correct way, while it is totally so slanted. It epitomizes what the media does.
At least 2 Americans have been mistakenly detained and released by your administration, immigration authorities. Mr. President, should lawful residents of this country start carrying paperwork with them when they leave their homes?
I don't think that'll be necessary, but what you're not saying is that many people have been killed, maimed, badly hurt by illegal immigrants that came over that are from prisons and from jails and from mental institutions, and they're hurting our people. And if we don't get them out, we're not going to have a country for long. We need honest, we need honest media, and we need walls. We need to have borders. And by the way, I built a lot of walls, and if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to have those. You know, we would not be able to have the kind of numbers if I wasn't successful in building hundreds of miles of wall.
So according to her, in case a few innocent people ever get arrested in your city that are citizens in the States, we should just stop arresting people altogether because a few wrong people got caught up. Because that's what they're saying about deportations. We should not be doing these mass deportations because 2 Americans got caught up and arrested but then were released. So therefore, the deportations are evil. Like Trump said in the ABC interview, he can't 100% guarantee anything, just like we cannot guarantee 100% correct moves in anything we do as a society, as a people. Does that mean we should not arrest people? Does that mean we should not deport people? Does that mean we should not investigate crimes because we might come up with the wrong conclusions sometimes? No.
How does that help to
I
unify
want to
the
treat
country?
people fairly, whether they voted for me or not. I want to have a unified country. It's very hard because the media is so fake, including, like even the way you ask questions. Every question is asked in a negative vein. There's a toy company that took a toddler's, whatever, but you don't talk about the fact that gasoline is down at numbers that nobody believes possible. You know why they're down, by the way? Drill, baby, drill. We're drilling like crazy right now.
We try to make sure every question is fair, Mr. President.
Look, every question you ask says a very negative slant.
No, but look, I'm just curious.
I'm fine for responding to you. I don't think you're very difficult at all to respond to be honest with you. But you know what? You should ask some positive things like, sir, it's amazing what you've done with gasoline. Because you know what? Gasoline's big business. A stroller is not big business.
To this question, Mr. President, you said you wanted to unify the country. Does going after political foes undercut that goal?
No, not at all. No, we want honest people.
Okay.
I think you have to do that. We want honest people in this country.
Let me ask you big picture. People who have lived in countries like the Philippines, Hungary, Russia, they look at some of your actions going after civil service, going after universities, law firms, the media. They say it's out of an authoritarian playbook. What do you say to those who believe you are taking the country down an authoritarian path?
Well, there you go again. Why don't you ask it a different way? Many people wanted to come into our country. Many people love Trump. I won the election. They didn't win the election. I got a lot more votes than they did. I won the popular vote. I won all 7 swing states by a lot. A lot of people were surprised. I said, I think he could win 4, maybe 5. No, I won all 7, and I won by a lot. And I won, actually, I think there was a lot of hanky-panky going on, but it was too big to rig. That's the good news. It's too big to rig. But let me just say, so when you make these statements about people say this, people, Well, you know, they had their chance at the election and they lost big. So you should ask the question differently. You should say, what about the people that want to be in this country? What about the people that love this country?
But what do you say? I'm asking it on behalf of those people to give you a chance to respond to them. What do you say to those people, sir?
Those people are going to be very happy. They're going to have to see some results. And I think we had a great 100 days. There are a lot of people that say it was unprecedented. It was an absolutely unprecedented 100 days. And I hope that they're going to be right.
Do you see dissent as an essential part of democracy?
It's a part of democracy. It is. You're
Is
always
it
going
an
to have
important
dissent.
part of democracy?
Yeah, you're always going to have, Kristen, you're always going to have dissent. There's nothing you're going to do about that. Am I going to get 100% unified? It would be a strange place. I can't even imagine it where 100%. Look, you have people that are good people. They're very smart people. And they honestly believe we should have open borders and the entire world should be allowed to pour into our country. I think it's a 95-5 issue, but they believe it. They're not even bad people. Some of them are bad. You have people that honestly believe that men should be allowed to play in women's sports. Some of these people, I don't know any. I haven't been able to find any, but they exist. They say it's an 80-20 issue. I don't believe that. I think it's a 97-3 issue.
I don't understand how he handles these questions over and over and over again. I'm watching the clip while I'm just trying to make this video, and I start cursing a bunch because it's so ridiculous what she's asking. And it's really impressive the patience he has to handle this continually, properly give a proper answer that can be easily digestible, that's not too offensive, because you know, when you're at work, maybe when you're at church, when you're at the store, when you're seeing friends, just like how I know while I'm traveling and in these hostels with all these super liberal people, that when you consistently hear these angled, negative questions where they always find one or two instances of something Trump is doing and bring up the negative, or they spin the question, oh, he's so mean against minorities, when he's just deporting the illegals who happen to be minorities, it gets so frustrating, irritating to deal with. And I usually don't have a lot of patience for it. Even after a 10-minute conversation, I'm like, oh my God, these people. I'm supposed to stay calm, but it's tough too. And you guys can imagine how tough that is when you deal with that at work, when you deal with that out and about in the world. And yet we deal with it here and there, and we get sick of it. And Trump, on top of all the other responsibilities, his crazy schedule, he's got to deal with these over and over and over again. And he's got to give the proper answer all the time, because if he doesn't, they're going to dissect it for days and days and days. And I just don't know how he does it. It's truly impressive. No matter what you think of him, the ability of any fair-minded president, decently minded president who's there, dealing with the pressure of public life, even the senators, even the congressmen, it's really, really impressive, especially to the level Trump deals with it. Because you know, I know, we can barely even handle it in our regular life, and we don't have it that often. Now we're going to end it by hearing, I think, even though the media won't tell you this, even though leftists won't tell you this, a logical case why Trump brings up his idea of making Canada the 51st state. Yes, it sounds like a wild idea, but listen to the logic based on how much money we pour into them, and basically we don't really get any benefit back.
You have long talked about making Canada the 51st state. There's obviously a new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who you spoke to after his victory. He says that you didn't talk to him in that call about making Canada a 51st state.
No, he called me. He was very nice, and I congratulated him. He had a victory. It's a very close victory. It's, there's no majority or anything, so that's going to make things a little bit difficult, I think, for him to run. But he nevertheless had a victory, and he's a very nice man, I think.
Do you plan to talk to him about making Canada a 51st state?
He wants to come and see me. He's going to come this week or next week.
So will you talk to him about making Canada a 51st state, annexing Canada?
I'll always talk about that. You know why? We subsidize Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. In fact, we don't want their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't even want their energy. We have more than they do. We don't want their lumber. We have great lumber. All I have to do is free it up from the environmental lunatics. We don't need anything that they have. we're giving them. I asked Mr. Trudeau, who I call Governor Trudeau. I said, you know, not Prime Minister, Governor. I said, Governor Trudeau, could I ask you one question? Why are we giving you $200 billion? Why are we subsidizing Canada? If Canada was a state, it wouldn't cost us. It would be great. It would be such a great, it would be a cherished state. And if you look at our map, if you look at the geography, I'm a real estate guy at heart. When I look down at that, without that artificial line that was drawn with a ruler many years ago, it was just an artificial line, goes straight across. You don't even realize what a beautiful country it would be. It would be great. But I don't think the American public wants me to pay $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. Again, remember this.
Yeah.
We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We do very little business with Canada. They do all of their business practically with us.
You and I,
they need us. We don't need them.
You and I talked, and I asked you if you would rule out military force to take Greenland, and you said no, you don't rule out anything. Would you rule out military force to take Canada?
Well, I think we're not going to ever get to that point. It could happen. Something could happen with Greenland. I'll be honest. We need that for national and international security.
But not with
I think
Canada?
It's highly unlikely. I don't see it with Canada. I just don't see it. I have to be honest with you.
Okay, but you don't rule it out for Greenland.
And by the way, Canada, they spend less money on military than practically any nation in the world. They pay NATO less than any nation. They think we're subsidized. They think we are going to protect them. And really, we are. But the truth is, they don't carry their full share, and it's unfair to the United States and our taxpayers.
But you are not ruling out military force to take Greenland.
I don't rule it out. I don't say I'm going to do it, but I don't rule out anything. No, not there. We need that. We need Greenland very badly. Greenland is a very small amount of people, which we'll take care of and we'll cherish them and all of that. But we need that for international security. Do you know, we have Russian boats and we have Chinese boats, gunships all over the place, aircraft carriers, gunships, going up and down the coast of Greenland. We need that to be protected. Internationally, we need it.
So you are willing to send U.S. troops to claim a sovereign territory?
I didn't say that. You asked me a question. Would you? Is there a circumstance? It could happen. I doubt it will, but it certainly could happen with respect to Greenland.
Trump's been around the block. He's done a lot of big deals. And he knows why in the media would I say what I am going to do, what I'm not going to do. If he draws a hard line publicly saying, well, I'm not going to do this in order to get what I want with Canada or Greenland, then when he does do it, first of all, the media is going to go crazy after him. Secondly, if he does publicly say what he will and will not do, he loses negotiation power with those countries. Just like Russia, just like Ukraine. She keeps pressing him, what will you do if Russia does this? What would you do if Ukraine does that? He's not going to lay his whole cards out on the table. Makes sense. It's just like what he said when he was debating Hillary Clinton before the 2016 election, and she was trying to state how she would fight ISIS, and Trump said, your plan is terrible because you're sharing your plan publicly how you're going to fight ISIS. I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to fight ISIS. Why would I make that publicly known for the enemy to know so they can combat what we're going to try to do to defeat them? And it's kind of the same thing right here. But she's going to press. She's going to press. But Trump, he's been around the block, and I'm surprised that she lets off pushing for an answer so fast. Maybe she shows some respect despite the rest of the time when she hasn't. It's SeanDaniel here. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider liking or subscribing to see more. If you came all the way to the end of the video, let me know in the comments below. Sean, I made it to the end of the video. I will be happy to respond back to you. I'll see you in the next one.